Here's 21 things you can do to get more out of Google Ads. And I'll not just rattle them off. I'm going to open up real accounts and show you them working, the actual settings, the actual numbers, so you're not taking any of this on faith. And fair warning, one or two of these maybe you'll already know. A few go directly against the advice that gets repeated everywhere, but 5 or 6 of them you only really figure out once you've watched a lot of money get wasted learning them. I'm Liam, by the way. I've spent 5 years running Google Ads for e-commerce brands, north of 100 of them at this stage, and driven well past $150 million in revenue in the process. Your account isn't my account, so test everything before you blindly take my word for it. But all of this comes from real accounts and real spend. Right, let's get into it. Number 1, test lifestyle images on your shopping campaigns. Most brands upload the clean, professional, white background studio shot because it looks premium, it looks safe. But go and study what that actually looks like in the shopping grid. Everyone's got the same clean shot, so yours becomes a camouflage and the eyes slide right past it. You see, there's a principle in psychology, it's called the von Restorff effect. It's the one thing that looks different is what people notice, and it's what people remember. So test a lifestyle image, a product in use image, in a real setting, a bit of color, a person in frame. On the 75 plus accounts we've run this in, we see an average CTR uplift of 43%. Same product, same price, different photo. Which brings me to number 2, because it pairs with the last one. Adjust your product titles for cold traffic. Most feeds are built brand first. Aesop Resurrection hand wash, 500 ml. That's fine if somebody already knows the brand. But your cold traffic, the new customers you actually want, they've never heard of you. They're not searching for your brand. They're searching solutions to their problems. Hand wash for dry skin, botanical hand soap. So if your title leads with the brand, Google has less to match it against, and you miss the query entirely. So front load what a cold buyer actually searches: category, descriptor, use cases, then the brand at the end. So it becomes botanical hand wash for dry skin, 500 mils, Aesop. Same product in the feed, you've now just made it findable to people who don't know you exist. Number 3 is group your search keywords into tight themed ad groups. Now this one sounds basic, and maybe on the surface it is, but there's a nuance that trips almost everyone up, so do stay with me here. The reason that you theme an ad group is relevance. When every keyword is about the exact same thing, you can write an ad that matches it all exactly, and Google rewards that match with a higher quality score and a lower cost per click. But here's where people get it wrong. They hear tight and themed and build 50 tiny ad groups with one keyword each, and that starves your bidding. Smart bidding learns from conversion data, and if you've chopped everything into tiny little scraps, no single one gets enough to learn from. So my rule is this: theme at the ad group level for relevance, consolidated at the campaign level for data. So now you get well-fed campaigns, not 50 scraps. Number 4 is feed your product reviews into Google Merchant Center. When you sync reviews, Google shows a star rating right under your product in the shopping listing. And in a grid, that little row of stars does 2 jobs at once. First, it lifts up your click-through rate, social proof just sitting there before anyone's ever landed on site. But the second one is what people miss. It draws the eye once again to your listing. You need 50 reviews across your entire product catalog before Google will show your product ratings. One more thing, make sure you feed in your GTINs, those product identifier numbers, because that is how Google will match your product ratings to the specific products in your feed. Number 5 are negative keywords. And I know everyone says just add your negatives, but the mistake is treating it as a chore. Scrolling the search term report every now and then, blocking a few junk terms, essentially playing whack-a-mole. What you're actually searching for are patterns, and these are called engrams. Repeated 1, 2, or 3 word queries that you never want to serve for and that are actively wasting your budget. Religiously identifying your engrams will make smart bidding more intelligent, because you're not wasting clicks feeding the algorithm with bad data. And not only that, it will also save you money every single week. Number 6 is not running your branded search campaigns on maximize conversions or maximize conversion value bidding. These terms are the cheapest to capture, and setting one of these smart bidding mechanisms on your branded search is licensed for Google to go away and overpay. Manual CPC, target impression share, or now what we're seeing more often in accounts, target ROAS bidding, is a far better approach. Number 7 is all about matching your landing page to search intent. Someone searching for a product category return. Let's say magnesium glycinate tablets. Perhaps they're far enough down the funnel that they can be sent straight to a product detail page. But the issue I see with people is they target more top of funnel queries or top of funnel placements like demand gen and YouTube and expect that traffic to then convert on a PDP. That traffic, given that it's much higher in the funnel, needs to be educated and brought through the funnel. Advertorials, listicles, VSLs, quiz funnels, these are far more appropriate than running straight to a PDP. So your landing page has to match both the level of intent and the position in the funnel that your traffic is at. Number 8 is to consolidate your fragmented campaigns. Smart bidding needs to hit a threshold of monthly volumes to be effective. Google's floor now says 15 technically. However, in our experience, a minimum monthly conversions in a campaign to switch to target CPA bidding as an example is 30 and target ROAS bidding is 50. But when you fragment your campaigns, scatter dozens of different campaigns within your account, hitting those thresholds becomes more difficult. Smart bidding gets starved of the data it needs to learn and your campaign's performance suffers. So follow the advice earlier. Theme your ad groups, consolidate your campaigns. Number 9 is to use quality score as a diagnostic tool. If your clicks in search are higher than they should be, well, assess your quality score by keyword. It's based on 3 components: expected click-through rate, landing page experience, and ad relevance. And the beauty of this is that you can see immediately which of these 3 components is lagging behind, and working on rectifying that lagging component and bringing it up is going to help you lift your overall quality score and lower your CPCs. Number 10, and this one's about where the puck is going. Max out every available attribute in your Google Merchant Center feed. Not just the required ones, but all of them. Color, material, GTIN, all of your product identifiers. For years, the advice was fill your feed for better shopping matching, and it still is the case. But there's a new reason, and it's a big one. When someone shops in AI mode or triggers an AI overview, Google is reading a shopping graph dictated almost entirely by your product feed. So your product data is now your visibility. The products that get pulled into AI overviews are the ones with the richest and most complete structured data. So a half-filled feed doesn't just rank lower, it gets left out of the answer entirely. Number 11 is to push more budget to proven winners. Send more budget to your top selling products. It sounds obvious, right? But most accounts are built with a single shopping or performance max campaign with all products dumped into it. You've got your hero products that everyone wants, and then you've got your dead stock that nobody's buying, and they're all competing for the exact same ad budget on the same footing. So more and more, it's better to pull your proven winners into their own campaigns. And you can use custom labels in your Google Merchant Center feed to help you with this. More budget to your proven winners is going to mean more revenue. More revenue, more sales is better data is better bidding, and a better bidding is a better account. And round we go. Number 12 is feedback your first party data into Google Ads. Your customer list, your MVPs, your highest value customers. Uploading these does 2 things at once. It lets you build audiences of people who've actually bought and find more like them. But the bigger one, and the one that matters more every month, it feeds smart bidding a signal it cannot get anywhere else. As tracking gets harder, as cookies crumble, the algorithm is increasingly reliant on the data you give it. Number 13 is to use every asset available to you. Site links, callouts, promotions, structured snippets, images, reviews. I still see accounts running bare ads, but these assets make your ads physically bigger. They take up more of the page, and it allows you to offer more reasons to click through your ad. It is free. It's the single cheapest lift in CTR in the whole platform. Number 14 is running demand gen campaigns to educational pre-landers. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong. They send cold traffic to a PDP, it never converts, and they write demand gen off as a campaign that never works for them. Instead, send them to a page that teaches, that frames the problem, tells the story, warms them up before it ever asks for a sale. Once again, you're matching the page to the temperature again. It's the same as principle number 7. It's just very specific to this type of campaign demand gen. And the reason I want to mention it twice is demand gen is so powerful, but I see so many campaigns set up completely incorrectly, targeting cold traffic, but treating it with assets and landing pages as if it's roasting hot. Number 15 is to highlight your offers within your Google Shopping ads. If you've got a sale on, don't just quietly drop the price. Use Merchant Center promotions and the sale price attribute, so it actually shows. You get the strike through, the old price crossed off, and a little sale badge. And in a grid full of plain listings, that badge is enough to capture the attention. Number 16 is to only bid on competitor terms if you genuinely have a better product or offer, or you're able to convince buyers that you do. Bidding on a competitor's name is easy, but the hard part is getting that competitor traffic to convert on your site. And that requires a dialed in comparison page to do so. You can't send this traffic straight to a homepage or a collection page, or even worse, a plain product page. Number 17 is to pause chronic low performers. And this advice deviates often from what you'll hear on Meta. Most Meta ad guys are saying, keep your low performing ads running no matter what, because you don't know what they're feeding further up the funnel. But generally speaking, that logic does not apply to Google. Now, unless we're talking about very specific top of funnel traffic, you should be pausing your chronically low performing keywords or products. Now, before you do, you obviously troubleshoot to see if you can improve performance. But if you've exhausted every availability, you've exhausted improving quality scores or optimizing your feed, making your listing more attractive for shopping, then yes, pause chronically low performers. Number 18 is to exclude the junk inside in PMax. By default, PMax will happily spend all your money, and it'll do so across display and in-app placements. And a big chunk of that is mobile games. When a kid or an adult fat fingers your ad when they're trying to click the X out button. We've all been there. That's not a customer, that is a wasted click and wasted ad budget. So go ahead and apply account level placement exclusions and never worry about this happening to you again. Number 19 is raising your average order value. And technically speaking, this falls slightly outside the remit of Google Ads, but it directly affects your potential to be effective in the auction. Using bundles or post-purchase surveys to increase your first order average value means you can be more aggressive in the same auction, win more clicks, holding the same conversion rate, and making the unit economics work for you. And this is key to dominating auctions in 2026. Number 20, and I've saved the two best for last. Build a dedicated branded shopping campaign using the waterfall method. It solves the problem of having branded queries leaking into your prospecting, shopping, or PMax campaigns. And it also keeps you in a position where you can effectively and cheaply protect your brand name. Your branded shopping campaign gets a low priority, while your non-branded shopping campaigns get a medium or high priority, and of course, a branded negative keyword list. It can be a bit fiddly to set up, especially if you're new to Google Ads, but trust me, it is so worth it if you run an e-commerce account. And number 21, and as I said at the start, one of those that you only learn after you spend millions within Google Ads and you've seen it go wrong, is if you spend big on Meta, do not use Performance Max to prospect. Here's what happens, and almost nobody catches it. PMax's whole job is to find people who are likely to convert as cheaply as possible. So where does it go looking? Well, straight to the warmest audiences in your funnel. People who are actively searching for you, people who've been on your website, people just circling that buy now button. And if you've been running heavy on Meta, you have built an enormous pool of warm traffic. People who saw you on Meta got interested, and now they're browsing on Google. PMax finds those people, closes them, and then reports a beautiful ROAS to you. And you sit there thinking Google is your best prospecting channel, but then you try to scale the channel and you can't. And that's because you're harvesting that Meta demand, not hunting for your own demand on Google. And you end up paying twice for the exact same customer. And you're eating into your margins, making it so much more difficult for you to actually scale your brand. And this is what I see so many e-commerce brands fall into the trap of doing. So please don't let it happen to you. Don't just run Performance Max blindly and take the reported results as gospel. So that's the 21. And if you zoom out, notice what all of these have in common. They're not a series of secret hacks. They all boil back to feeding the machine cleaner inputs, better images, better titles, better data, better structure, and then not letting it waste your money on the stuff it defaults to. Get those right, and Google stops being the channel that didn't work and starts to be the one finding customers that the other platforms couldn't reach. Now, one last thing, and this one is for any store owners or CMOs watching. If Google's already lining up to be a real channel for you, or you want it to be, my team and I run these exact checks and a lot more on live accounts every single day, and we find money leaking in absolutely every one of them. If you want us to look at yours and show you exactly where it's leaking, the link is in the description. Click it and answer a few questions, and if you're qualified, we'll take it from there. And if you want to go deeper on that last one, actually turning Google into a channel that finds you new customers, not just one that harvests the demand you've already paid for, I have made a full breakdown on exactly how to turn Google Ads into a cold traffic acquisition machine. You can watch it here.